Great. Okay, I think we're live in all the places. And I am just going to give a few minutes for folks to join us. We were actually sent some really, really great questions that I'm excited to look at this week. But I want to wait and let some folks jump on, hopefully. Let me see. We're going to be talking about the pain cycle and the power cycle. We got a question about that. What other questions did we get? Let me see. I'm scrolling through. Oh, some questions about tracking, and someone is looking for some advice about cutting back on dining out and takeout. And I love actually that this person has distinguished between the two. I tend to lump them together, but I actually think that some of us, we may find that going out to restaurants is a danger category for us, and others of us may find that takeout is a danger category for us, and some of us may find that it's both. But for us, on my side, it's definitely takeout. Like, it's not so much going out to restaurants that's getting us in trouble. But I would say it's the end of the day. No one feels like cooking, or even more than doesn't feel like cooking, no one feels like cleaning. That's always a big deal. That leads to a decent amount of takeout. We also received a question about consolidating credit card debt and whether that's a good idea for everyone, or are there specific situations where it might not be beneficial. I really love that question. It's not so much about situations where it might not be beneficial, but it is that there are definitely situations where consolidation may not be an option. Let's see. A question here about prioritizing. How do I personally prioritize my expenses? Finding it hard to differentiate between wants and needs in some gray areas. I'm sure that many of us can connect with that. And I think there was one more. Oh, yes. Oh, handling the guilt that sometimes comes with spending money on oneself, especially during financially tight periods. Oh, that's a good one. Let's see. We have gotten kicked off of Instagram, so let me try go live again. Let's see if we can do that. Okay. Try this again. Yeah, there we go. Okay, we are back live on Instagram. Let me see if we have any folks joining us on Facebook or YouTube. Here we go. Let's see. All right, welcome. It is Friday, September 8th, and this is our open Q&A. This is time that is really specifically for you, addressing any questions that you have as you are managing your money during these strikes. Managing money is always something that can be challenging for so many of us, but especially in a time of crisis. I really want to just offer this extra bit of support. And if there's anything that you would like to pop in the chat, a question that you are hoping we can talk about, I would love to do that. Now, I see we have some folks joining us on Facebook. It looks like we have a couple people joining us on YouTube, and also a handful of people on Instagram. So what I'm going to do to warm us up is I'm going to go ahead and start with a question that was submitted in advance. So this person sent this question via email, and I really want to stress for everyone that this is something that you can do. If you have any questions at all that you'd like for me to address during these lives on Fridays, please feel free to just email them to info at abundancebound.com. And I am so happy to dive into it for you. So this person shares, hey Miata, after your webinar about making decisions from a place of clarity, I've been trying to shift my mindset, but sometimes emotions still get the best of me. Do you have any tips on catching ourselves in the moment before making an emotional financial decision? So I love this question because, yes, in that webinar, we talked about a practice that we at Abundance Bound call the pain cycle versus the power cycle. And what we did is we provided precise steps that you can utilize to get yourself into the power cycle when making a financial decision. So in this person's case, this person again shares, after the webinar about making decisions from a place of clarity, I've been trying to shift my mindset. But sometimes emotions still get the best of me. Do you have any tips for catching ourselves in the moment before making an emotional financial decision? So what I would say about this is that the power cycle and the pain cycle both actually begin with emotion. So this person is very honestly sharing that sometimes emotions still get the best of them. But what we want to really acknowledge is that emotion is always going to be there. When it comes to money, emotions are always going to be a factor. So don't worry about the emotion being there, right? You book a big job, you're going to have emotion about that. You get a call from a debt collector, you are going to have emotion about that. Your rent is due in a week, and at this point, you're $500 shy and you're not sure what you should do. Going to have emotion about that. So, both cycles, the pain cycle and the power cycle, begin with emotion. But what we seek to understand is just understanding that any big emotion is an indication that you do not want to make a decision. Okay. So when this person in their question, they say that emotions get the best of them, absolutely what that signal of the big emotions, what that tells you is you're not going to make a decision. It's a big red light. You're not going to take any action from this place. So you begin your shift into the power cycle actually by doing nothing, by consciously making the decision to pause. And you remind yourself of two things. One, you say, okay, right now I'm overwhelmed by emotion. And two, I don't have the information I need yet to make a considered, thoughtful decision. So this pause is absolutely critical because it is in that pause that you can ready yourself not to react, but to respond. So, excuse me, everybody. As you can hear, I have a little bit of a cold. So, okay. So we take that pause. And then your next step, all right? And if you want to jot down notes, these are the actual steps you'll take. So the first step is you pause. The next step is what a famous psychiatrist, Dr. Siegel, he calls it name it to tame it. So the question you're going to ask yourself is, what is the dominant feeling that I am experiencing? And it's really important to say, I feel versus I am. So instead of saying I am scared or I am excited, you want to say I feel scared, I feel excited, or I feel anxious, I feel overwhelmed. That creates just a little bit of important separation between yourself and the emotion. And I really encourage you to write it down. Now, why? It's not just an empty exercise, because it puts you in your prefrontal cortex. It puts you in your logic brain. And this is what this person's question is addressing. How do I not just get swept away by emotion? And the way to stop ourselves from being swept away by emotion is to actually bring our logic brains online. So naming the feeling, it leads you to the next question. And the next question is, what exactly is causing this emotion? So if I say I am feeling afraid, what is it I'm afraid of? I'm afraid I won't be able to pay my rent next month. I'm afraid that I will get evicted. I'm afraid that if I ask my family for help one more time, there's going to be a huge argument, right? So, what exactly is causing the emotion? If you feel excited, what are you feeling excited about? Okay, so really list everything. My debt balances feel really high. I think I'm going to be spending a lot of money on interest charges. I'm angry at myself for not paying attention to having a card with lower interest rates. All right, write these things down. This then leads to the next question. What facts can you get around what is causing these emotions? Okay, so this is where you're starting to gather information. You're starting to make a list of the facts. So if we use, I am afraid that I will not have enough money to pay my rent next month. Okay, here is now where I can get really clear where is that fear coming from? Okay, so it's not just I don't have enough. It's what is actually going on. So what kind of information would I gather? How much money do I have in my checking account right now? Do I have any money at all in savings? Okay. What bills do I have to pay between now and when my rent is due? Again, on October 1st. Really list those out. What else might I find out? Do I have any guaranteed income coming in between now and October 1st? If so, I would list that, right? How many shifts do I have at the restaurant? What's the average amount that I tend to earn each shift? So this is all the information that I am going to be gathering. And what this does is not only have we now really super engaged our logic brain, we're now in a cycle that is going to lead us to even better questions and better information, and that will naturally lead to better actions. So the minute I ask myself, do I have any guaranteed income coming in between now and then? Well, that is automatically, at least in my brain, now that leads me to, okay, what else could I do to earn money in the next 3 weeks? What else could I do to bring money in, right? So if it isn't earning it per se, is there something that I might perhaps be able to sell? So this leads to a number of different questions. Is there a service that I could offer? Are there people that I have worked for in the past that I could reach out to? Okay. So we're just getting ourselves in a cycle of even better questions and better information, which leads us to better actions, better decisions. And all of this is moving me towards more solid ground. Okay. Building the muscle of asking and answering these questions, that is what engages your upstairs brain. So again, for the person who sent in this question, it isn't that the emotions go away. You're still feeling the emotions, but all of this very specific action that you are taking is helping you not, how did you put it in your question? You said, catching myself in the moment before making an emotional financial decision. Okay, so all of these very precise steps that we're talking about is how you catch yourself in the moment. It's how you pause and how you actually force your logic brain to come online. Okay, and again, by practicing this, what you will find is that less and less will you feel you just got swept up in an emotion, right? It's kind of like falling into the river and just getting swept down the current. You are instead choosing to pause. And I love this question, everyone, because it really shows that you are willing to make the effort. You're saying, I still find myself being swept up by emotion. And being honest about that is then how we start to strengthen that muscle of pausing, okay? And then asking the questions that we just went through. So wonderful, wonderful question. Thank you for that one. And for everyone who has jumped on in the last few minutes, welcome. This time is 100% for you. We were sent some questions in advance, and so that's what I've been diving into. But please, if you have any question at all, feel free to just type it into the chat and I will do my best to answer it. I haven't done this. I usually do this. I'm going to just type hi in the chat on Instagram, and let me do that as well on Facebook and YouTube for the folks who are joining us there. And feel free to, hopefully that came up for you, feel free to pop a question, anything that you would like us to talk about. Now, and forgive me, everyone, I'm fighting a cold. While I give those of you who are here an opportunity, if you have any questions, to put them in the chat, I'll go ahead and address another question that I was sent. So this person said, after the Taming Your Debt session, which was just this past Tuesday, I've been looking into consolidating my credit card debt. Do you think it's a good idea for everyone, or are there specific situations where it might not be beneficial? Okay, love this question. And the first thing I want to say is that if you missed the Taming Your Debt session and you have any debt at all, please click on the link in our bio on Instagram or email us at info@abundancebound.com and request the Taming Your Debt recording. We will leave that recording up until Wednesday, September 20th at midnight. So please take the opportunity to watch this. We really went through very specific very specific steps for managing your debt, both throughout this crisis, but also beyond, okay? So in terms of this, do I think consolidation is a good idea for everyone, or are there specific situations where it might not be beneficial? So what I would say here is that what we're looking to do when we consolidate our debt is really two things. One, we're looking to simplify our lives by having one single payment. So if I have 4 credit cards right now, then I would be able to, if I was able to qualify for a consolidation loan, then I could pay back all of my credit cards with that consolidation loan, and I could pay the single debt, okay? Now, in general, it is likely to be a good idea for everyone who can actually qualify for a consolidation loan. And we really, in the recording, go very specifically into detail about how to determine whether you're likely to qualify, and also where to find kind of the best places to apply for a personal loan if that's something that's the right fit for you. So the first thing is just that you would need to be able to qualify for it. But the second thing is, I need you to be very, very clear on what your current interest rates are. And again, and I just see Ruthie popped in the chat the link to the recording. Thank you, Ruthie. I don't want to seem like a broken record, but I really want to say that if you go grab that recording where we've posted it, the page where we've posted the recording, you'll also find links to some resources. And one of the resources is a debt organizer that we give you. And that debt organizer allows you to really organize all of your different debts and what their current APRs are, their current annual percentage rates that they're charging. Because the worst thing would be if you got a consolidation loan that was actually at a higher interest rate overall than the interest rates that you're paying on your current debt. So one of the resources that we share in the Taming Your Debt webinar is we share a link to a calculator that will help you calculate how much you are spending in interest and how long it's going to take you to pay off your debts. And this calculator is really helpful for those of us who may have multiple debts with different interest rates, right? Because just as an example, let's say that this person who sent in this question, let's say that they have 3 credit cards and one of them is at an interest rate of 7.99 and one of them is at an interest rate of 18.99 and one of them is at an interest rate of 24.99. And they have different balances on each of those cards. And then they qualify for a consolidation loan at 19%. I think it's safe to say that none of us can do that math in our heads as to whether consolidating all of their debt from those 3 cards onto the single 19% loan would be better than the card that's at 7%, the card that is at 19%, and the card that is at, 25%. And so you need a way to actually calculate that utilizing your balances and your interest rates, okay? But what I would say is that if you utilize the tools that we share with you in the webinar, if you utilize those tools, you will absolutely be able to compare apples to apples in terms of whether the consolidation loan is the right move for you, whether it is actually an improvement in terms of the amount of money that your debt is costing you. Okay, so this was an excellent question, and hopefully this is helpful for this person who sent it in, as well as for anyone else who might be trying to decide whether consolidating your debt is a good idea. So, how do you know when it's best to file bankruptcy? Okay, this is also a really, really great question. Now, I know, everyone, that I am going to sound absolutely like a broken record, but I really, really want the person who is sending in this question to please go grab the recording for the Taming Your Debt seminar and watch it, because I do break this down in some detail that would be hard to do now. But overall, okay, what's really important is that you figure out how much all of your current debt is costing you, okay? And I share a very specific formula for how to do that. Forgive me. So once you figure out what your debt is costing you, how much you're spending, you then need to determine what your monthly expenses are, including those debt payments, okay? And I don't mean what you want to pay the debt. I mean literally what the debt is costing you, okay? Now, once you have that number, what I always say is, let's say that my monthly expenses, including what the minimums that I must pay on my debt, okay? Let's say that monthly number is $5,500, okay? And of that, let's say that 700 is the amount that I am spending on my debt. So without my debt, instead of 5,500, I would be spending 4,800, okay? Where I believe it is worth considering bankruptcy, okay? And I would want to have a longer conversation with this person. But where I think it is worth considering it is if that person knows that they are on average consistently earning $5,000 a month or $5,200 a month. Or in the case of most of us as non-traditional earners, they're bringing in or clearing $60,000 or $65,000 a year on average. Because then what we know is we know that without your debt, you would be right side up. You would actually be earning more than you're spending, and you would be in a position to actually start growing. But it's really important. I cannot tell you how many people we see all the time who jump into bankruptcy or they jump into debt, formalized debt management plans without having this clarity around their numbers. And they file bankruptcy or they go into a formal debt plan and they're still upside down. They are still earning less than they're spending. So not only have they tanked their credit, but they are now also in a rapidly worse financial position because they've tanked their credit and they're rapidly getting back into debt again. Forgive me, I'm going to take a sip of water. Okay, so I just saw another question come through the chat. Where can you put your savings for higher interest? Oh my gosh, love this question right now because it is really important that we all do not have our savings sitting at traditional bank accounts, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Chase, or frankly, even the credit unions. Because guys, all of their interest rates are going to be fairly low. Right now, you should absolutely be able to get with zero risk, zero fees, zero minimum balances, you should be able to get interest rates of over 4%. So there are absolutely interest rates right now on various online banks, online institutions at 4.5%, 4.85%. We're even seeing interest rates over 5%. So I am a big fan. Many of our financial empowerment program members have accounts at places like Wealthfront. So you can go to wealthfront.com. I have a number of savings accounts there right now. We have members with accounts at Marcus, which is a higher interest account at Goldman Sachs. Ally tends to have solid rates, so I would check and see Ally Bank. You can go to bankrate.com and you'll be able to look and see what some of the institutions are, but that are offering higher interest rates. I also really love NerdWallet. NerdWallet will usually share. You can do a search on NerdWallet for high interest savings accounts. But everyone, this is a great, great question. Please do not have any more money than you need to cover your immediate, like this month's expenses. Anything extra should absolutely be moved to a high interest online bank. and be earning money. Okay, you want to get your money earning money as quickly as possible. My accounts at Wealthfront are linked to my checking accounts at Chase Bank, and I can very easily, I always say, give yourself 3 days, although usually the transfers happen faster, but give yourself 3 days. I can easily transfer money from my savings to my checking instead of having it sitting in my checking, not earning any interest at all. You're very, very welcome. That is an excellent question. So, everyone, as you can hear, I am struggling with a bit of a cold. And so I absolutely want to take questions from anybody who is here who has a question that you want to pop in the chat. But I'm also not going to just keep talking if you guys don't have questions. Let me take another sip. Now, we were sent in another question in advance. And so I'm going to answer this one. And please think about whether you have anything that you'd like to ask, and go ahead and pop it in the chat for me. I'm truly so happy to stay. Oh, great. Danny, you have a question. Great. Go ahead, and if you want to type it out and put it in the chat, because I'm so happy to stay and answer any questions as long as you guys have them. So I will go ahead and share this question that was sent in, Danny, while you type your question in the chat, and anyone else who wants to as well. So this person shared, Miata, during a financial crisis, how do you personally prioritize your expenses? I'm finding it hard to differentiate between wants and needs in some gray areas. Oh, I think we can all really relate to that question. Okay, so this really, this is something that we talked about a lot in the Finding Your Monthly Number webinar. And also, of course, anybody who hasn't watched the first webinar, which is Your Financial Survival Guide During the Strikes, please go and download that from the link in our bio and give it a watch. So the way that I do it is I genuinely take my statements, okay? And I go through, so what I would do is I'd go through a recent bank statement, and I would go through it and I would highlight everything on the statement that I technically could stop, okay, or pause. And I like this system, guys, because the first level, I'm not actually addressing whether I want to pause it or whether even I am going to pause it. All I'm addressing is, could I? Is it an option? Okay. So as I go through my statement, there are going to be things that I can't stop. I can't stop my rent or mortgage, right? I mean, we have definitely had members. We've had members who, for instance, have decided to temporarily move home to be with family to save on rent. So I'm not saying it's an absolute, right? If I were really in a bind. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through those things that I certainly can't easily stop. So rent, right? I can't stop groceries. I might be able to do better with my groceries, but I can't stop groceries. I can't stop gas for my car. I'm still going to need to drive places. I would say I can't stop my health insurance, right? But what I'm looking for are the things I could stop. Now, when we did the webinar, I actually shared one of my bank statements and we went through it. And one of the things that came up a lot on that bank statement was the different charities that are really important to me. And so I shared right there in the webinar that I had a moment of like, as I was putting them on the list of I could pause them. Again, I don't want to, but the only rule, the first rule is could I? So, yes, I could pause my payment to that foundation. I could pause my payment to KCRW, right? Okay, I could pause my monthly acting lessons. I could pause them, right? It is something I could take a break. Now, again, I don't happen to be in a class where if you stop, you're not allowed to come back, right? That might actually be a situation for someone. That's not my situation. So I would be able to put it on the I could pause it. Okay. I'm trying to think of other things. I could pause my gym membership. I could pause my subscriptions to the various newspapers. I could pause my subscription to Netflix and HBO, right? So that's the first step for this person who asked, how do you differentiate between wants and needs? And then what I do, guys, is everything that's on the list that is it could be paused, I put the actual cost next to it. I put the actual cost. Because what that then allows, and this is also where the pain cycle and power cycle comes in, and the gathering information that puts us in the power cycle. Then I look at what my monthly number is, right? I look at what my monthly expenses are. I look at what my runway is. And that's actually the next live webinar that we will be leading on the 20th of September. If you want to go ahead and put that in your calendar, we're going to be diving deep into your runway. But I would look at my runway and very loosely, if my monthly expenses are $5,000 a month and I have $8,000 in my accounts, then I have about a month and a half of runway. Okay. So right now I would be like, okay, so maybe I have to the end of October with my runway. So then I look at the list of things I could pause, and having the information about the reality of my situation is what is going to help me identify between those wants and needs that are in the gray area. Because if I look and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not even sure that I could get to the end of October, and it is very, very possible that these strikes will extend through October. And certainly we have no idea when they end, how long it will take for work to ramp up again. I am now, with this new clarity, I'm going to have an easier time making the decision to pause more of these things. And guys, I use the word pause because it is just that. I will return to these things as soon as I am more stable, as soon as I am able to. But having it in front of you in this way and having clarity around why, right? No, I don't want to, but if it would buy me another 2 weeks, if I could even make cuts that will buy me potentially another month, I am willing to make those cuts to give myself the ability to ride out this storm. Okay. So I hope that helps the person who asked this question, because absolutely, right? We're human, and it's always going to be challenging to differentiate between our wants and our needs. And so someone has shared here, I wonder if I should get a roommate to cut costs, but I love living alone. Okay, I love this. Yes, you love living alone. Okay, now, totally understandable. Absolutely, you want to acknowledge that that is how you feel, okay? And then look at the numbers. Just look at the numbers, because what your ability, what getting roommates might give you the ability to do, you may decide that you love what it gives you the ability to do more than you love living alone, right? So the beauty about that example, and I see a same in the chat, so I think we can all relate to it. The beauty about that example is that rent can be one of those big numbers in our lives. Me cutting Netflix and, pausing HBO and pausing the gym membership and maybe even taking a break from my acting classes, I might be able to shave a few $100s. Rent, in some of our cases, we're literally talking about an instantaneous income if we got a roommate of $750, $1,000, maybe even more than that. And so the question I would want you to ask is, when you take an honest look and a real look at your numbers, and you take an honest look at your runway, and you take an honest look at if you are someone who has debt, when you put all of those things together, what might adding a roommate, what would that allow? How much more runway would it give you in a period where we don't know how long these strikes will last? If you said, okay, I will get a roommate for 6 months, and then the strikes end, right? But what would keeping that roommate for the full 6 months, what would that allow in terms of building your savings, in terms of building your ability to withstand the next storm and the next one after that, right? So love that share, because this is where we really are seeking to strengthen our emotional intelligence around our money, to absolutely acknowledge what we feel, and also to be willing to say, I feel this, and now this connects to the question the person asked about being swept up in their emotions. I feel this. Now, what information am I going to gather to make the most powerful decision possible for me and my North Star, where I am actually headed? Okay. Great stuff. So those were all the questions I was sent in. Are there any other questions from anybody who's here that I can help you with? This time is totally for you. Anything at all? Oh, I keep forgetting to check Facebook too, because we have some people joining us here on Facebook. Anyone, guys? Any additional questions? Hold on, let me just check our email to make sure that we haven't gotten any more. Sorry, guys, give me 1 second. Oh, okay, wait. Here's one more. Hold on, guys. Okay. All right. Oh, okay. I really connected with what you said about money and emotions being deeply intertwined. How do you suggest handling the guilt that sometimes comes with spending money on oneself, especially during financially tight periods? Oh, yes. Okay. So I actually feel like, I don't know whether this person is here or not, but I actually feel like this question is connected to the one that we just took a few minutes ago about how do we differentiate between wants and needs in some of those gray areas. And what I would say is that what you want to really stay connected to is that you do have to continue to take care of yourself. You have to continue to feed yourself and to take care of your health. You do have to continue to have friendships and social interactions, right? You absolutely have to continue to meet all of your needs, right? And what I would say is that the goal in a time of crisis is it's just seeking to be really honest about what your financial realities are with yourself and also with the people who are closest to you so that you can continue to care for yourself and continue to have those social connections, but to do it in as low cost a way as possible, right? So these are not the times to just lock ourselves in our houses and not do anything at all. But it's also potentially not the time to be going out with friends to pricey restaurants. It maybe is the time to really look at doing potlucks and like doing fun things that are about having fun, right? That are about bringing that lighthearted energy and also companionship into your days, but without spending a lot of money. And I think the more that we're willing to stretch ourselves in these areas, the more that we're willing to say, yeah, it's just been my default. Yeah, let's meet at this restaurant, or let's meet for coffee or breakfast, where you might instead meet at a park and everybody brings something, or meet at someone's house, or, depending on where you are and what the weather is like. I feel that guilt is one of those emotions that when we're feeling it, we want to ask ourselves, and this was also tied to the practice that we did earlier in the call, we want to ask ourselves, where is that guilt coming from? So go further. When you say spending money on oneself, go further with yourself and say, now, why do I feel guilty about this? Was it the amount, right? Was it a need or a want? If it was a want, could you have done that want for less? what might you be willing to cut back on in the coming weeks to allow for that want? These are the ways that we can continue to take care of ourselves and honor how we're feeling. And yes, honor some of our wants without torturing ourselves by doing things that are really outside of our current capabilities. Okay? So I hope that's helpful. All right, everyone. I didn't see any additional questions come through the chat. I'll check Facebook quickly. No, I don't see any other questions there. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you for everyone who sent in a question, everyone who posted one. Again, I'm committed to going live every Friday for as long as these strikes last, 1 p.m. Pacific. If you have questions during the week, jot them down. You can always send them in an email and I'll address them, even if you're not able to be here live, so you can watch them in the recording. But that way also you'll just have your questions ready. And whenever you come, you can just copy and paste them into the chat. Or again, if you don't want anyone to see who the question is coming from, feel free to email us at info@abundancefound.com or direct message us, and I will bring those questions and be sure to address them. Our next live webinar will be on Wednesday, September 20th, and we will be diving into your runway. How do you identify what your runway is and then take the steps to really maximize and increase your runway? That is the amount of time you can last through a crisis period. Okay? Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, everyone. And I will see you next week. Bye.